Well, the dust is still settling following Monday's federal election results in this country. How quickly should Parliament return to deal with the ongoing pandemic response, leadership challenges, and moving forward on priorities and how to get through them and get them forward with another minority parliament? Let's bring in our panel of party commentators. Back with us for the first time since the early hours of Tuesday morning after election night, and hopefully somewhat rested. Susan Smith is a Liberal commentator, Kate Harrison is a Conservative commentator, and Kim Wright is an NDP commentator. Great to see you all again. And Kate, I want to start with you if I can. There are now public challenges to Erin O'Toole's leadership, an online petition to get rid of him from a National Council member. The party's now locked its candidates and MPs out of the central voter database in what some see as Erin O'Toole's effort to protect his leadership. And today, Alberta MP Chris Workington is quoted telling a local reporter, "It was when our party leaders started to waffle on some of the policies that we had brought forward, that he had brought forward and hadn't been clear, that I believe that Canadians became uncertain and unwilling to continue to look at our party as an alternative." So how precarious do you think Mr. O'Toole's leadership is now?
Well, as you know, Peter, favorite pastime of the Conservative Party is to have a big pity party after an election loss and invite everybody to it, including our friends in the media and anybody that wants to listen. I do think that there is not the reason for doom and gloom that some other Conservatives have, but I also fully acknowledge that people are feeling a bit bruised and a bit raw after not winning another election. I do think overwhelmingly though, the people I talk to say that they realize that this is going to take a little bit of time, right? Erin O'Toole has only been in the seat for a year. Justin Trudeau called the election at the time that was most advantageous to him. That showed a bit in the results. And if we want to have any kind of a path to actually building recognition and trust with voters, that is going to take a lot more than one election, and it's not going to help if we keep substituting the leader in and out.
All right, everybody gets a question tonight. Susan, there are also rumblings inside the Liberal ranks that maybe the campaign could have been smoother. The result could have been, maybe should have been better. 3 women cabinet ministers were lost. Will we see any open attacks on Justin Trudeau's leadership?
No, I don't think you will at all. The Prime Minister has just defeated his 3rd Conservative leader in a row. He brought forward a progressive agenda to Canadians, and he was given the trust of Canadians to run this minority government. So I think the caucus has confidence in him, the country has confidence in him, and he will lead a very stable minority government, which I expect to last 2 to 3 years, this next government. So I think no worries about that. The one thing I would just add to Kate's thing with Mr. O'Toole is he very quickly potentially faces a confidence vote in his caucus. There's something called the Reform Act, which was passed brought in by Michael Chong. Yep. And if 20% of a caucus vote to have a leadership review, then there is a secret ballot. And so there's a mechanism there that he has a very immediate and urgent issue that he has to deal with within his own party.
And we'd see that as soon as presumably Parliament reconvenes.
Yeah.
Kim Wright, New Democrats, spent way more money in this campaign, $24 million, and won one additional seat. So I guess I'm wondering why we're hearing so little from inside the NDP at this point about Jagmeet Singh's continued leadership and his inability to win more seats, even with a far less popular Liberal leader.
So one of the things that we've spent a lot of time and effort on has been about increasing those ridings that aren't exactly bastions of NDP support and developing that activist base, developing those candidates and campaigns. And what we've seen across the country in almost every province and territory is overarchingly New Democrat vote going up, and the other parties can't exactly say that. We also spent a lot of time developing candidates that weren't just your usual suspects, your sort of old white guy club, so to speak. That includes more than 50% women, people from the LGBTQ community, Indigenous leaders, including Blake Desjardins, that, many observers were saying, New Democrat can't win in Edmonton-Grougeback. Let me tell you, they can, and they did. Yes, I would have liked to have seen more seats. Davenport was a heartbreaker at 165 votes, but there's a lot more people on the ground, a lot more excitement to come.
Kate, Kevin Vuong, the former Liberal candidate, dropped by the party 2 days before the election over a sexual assault charge the party says it didn't know about but was later dropped. His name remained on the ballot, though, because of the way the election rules work. He won the riding of Spadina-Fort York and says he's going to sit in the House as an independent, but there's a growing backlash against him. What should happen here?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it kind of starts at the beginning, right, in terms of the vetting process that goes into these candidates. We have to remember, too, that Justin Trudeau did not immediately disavow Vuong. He said he would pause his campaign, and then it took about 48 hours for him to be kicked to the curb when the Liberals realized that they couldn't afford the backlash there. It's disheartening to have this keep happening in our political system. I think the vetting is part of it. Perhaps there's calls for a by-election. I'm not sure what the answer is. I think that the advance votes here made a bit of a difference too, right? And if those voters could go back and change their mind, now knowing what they know now, it seems unfair that they wouldn't be able to change that.
That's what a lot of them are saying. Susan, what should happen here?
Well, it's a good question, Peter. I don't think there's a provision for I changed my mind in advance voting. How would you split that hair? Because sometimes people do change their minds even from when they cast their ballot through. Granted, this is an extenuating circumstance. Look, it's unfortunate. It's awful. This candidate did not tell the truth to the party and the vetting process because it was a charge that was dropped. There was no way for the party to find that out. That's very disappointing. That is on the candidate. He's now sitting because his electorate voted for him, including for the people on election day who went and cast their ballots there. I think he'll sit as an independent. I don't expect him to have much profile, and I don't expect him to be around after another election. Right. Hopefully, he'll do good work for his constituents.
Kim, let me hear from you on this. What should happen?
Look, the Liberals have one of the best opposition research bureaus going. The fact that they allegedly didn't know about this or didn't check charges against a candidate from a couple of years ago is about as laughable and unbelievable as Raj Saini not being vetted properly. The reality is that, the question I have is how many other candidates kind of didn't go through this proper vetting process that are now sitting MPs. I think there's a lot of questions about how Parliament has not served women well, elected and at the staff level. That has been a perennial problem that people pay lip service to when it suits them. And I think Kevin Vuong will be about as independent as the independent senators. And that is a tragedy for how do we get more women involved in politics.
We've got about 30 seconds each here, so pretty short answers if we can. Susan, let me start with you because you sort of touched on it earlier. How long do you think this minority parliament will last, given where we are? Maybe we're entering this era now of minority parliaments, given we have 6 parties in the country splitting votes. So how long does it last, and how does it last longer, if it's going to last longer?
I think it will last 2 and maybe even 3 years. Canadians are in no rush to go back to the polls, and there is not a single leader there that would pull the trigger anytime soon. Canadians have sent our parliamentarians back in a minority format. They like that at the moment. They want us to work together. They want every party to work together. That's male and female MPs. I sort of resent that Kim tarnished the male Liberal MPs with the brush on her previous statement. And I don't think that's okay. But 2 to 3 years, I think, Parliament, and I think they will cooperate. We'll see cooperation.
Okay.
See some good measures in place.
All right, Kate, what are your predictions?
Yeah, I think Susan's onto something. I think people don't want to go to the polls. I also think the loud and clear message that came out of Monday night was that Canadians want Parliament to work. It's up to them to figure out how it works. They don't want to be bothered with this, the attempts to grab power, et cetera. But I think we have seen Justin Trudeau's last election. So in terms of the timing, they're going to want to allow for a leadership race. They're going to want to allow for that person to become established. All of that takes time. So I think that we're probably looking at, at least 24 months.
All right, Kim, what are your thoughts? How long?
Yeah, I would say it's probably in that 18 to 24 month range, but a lot of that will also depend on how the Prime Minister wants to come forward with the speech from the throne, with his mandate letters, with what he's allowing for the free flow of ideas between ministers and opposition leaders. If he comes at this fire and brimstone and hubris, I think it's going to be a lot more problematic for him to find ways to govern. But in looking at the party platforms and the things that were talked about that matter to Canadians, there is some common ground that he can find. And I will say that, he's got some willing ears in the New Democrats if he wants to help Canadians.
All right. Well, let's see how it all unfolds. It won't be too long now before we start to see this roadmap get laid out. Thank you all for your time tonight. Take care. We'll talk again.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you.